The crack of a pistol shot sent a flock of startled crows into the evening sky as Lily Wallace urged her exhausted chestnut mare faster through the rugged terrain of the New Mexico territory. Blood soaked her sleeve where the bullet had grazed her, but she couldn't afford to stop now, not with Sheriff Tate and his deputies less than a mile behind. The year was 1879, and Lily had just become the most wanted woman west of the Mississippi. "Come on, girl," she whispered, patting the mare's lathered neck. "Just a little further." Ahead, the setting sun painted the desert landscape in fierce oranges and reds, silhouetting the scattered mesas and scrubby vegetation. Her heart thundered in her chest, keeping time with the mare's labored breathing as they descended into a small valley dotted with sparse junipers. She'd been riding for nearly 2 days straight, stopping only when absolutely necessary. The sound of pursuit had faded, but Lily knew better than to assume she'd lost them. Sheriff Tate was nothing if not persistent, especially now that he believed her guilty of murder. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd never fired a gun at a living soul before in her 22 years. Now she was running from a crime she hadn't committed, with nothing but the clothes on her back, her mother's locket around her neck, and a small pouch of coins tucked into her boot. The mare stumbled, nearly sending Lily sprawling. The poor animal was at the limit of its endurance. Lily's own body ached from the long ride, and the wound on her arm throbbed mercilessly. "Just a little further," she repeated, though she had no destination in mind. Just away from Silverdale, away from the accusations, away from the sight of Jacob Thornton's body lying in a pool of blood in his own parlor. As darkness fell completely, Lily spotted a faint glow in the distance, a light where there shouldn't be one in this uninhabited stretch of territory. Hope flickered in her chest. Maybe she could find shelter, at least for the night. Tomorrow she'd push on to Santa Fe where she could lose herself in the crowd. The light grew stronger as she approached, resolving into the glow of lanterns from a modest but well-kept ranch house. A barn stood nearby, and in the corral, several horses lifted their heads at the sound of her approach. Lily reined in at the edge of the property, hesitating. Seeking help meant risking discovery. But the mare was done in, and without rest and care, the animal wouldn't make it another day, and neither would she. Decision made, she guided her horse toward the house. Before she could reach it, a deep voice called out from the darkness, "That's far enough, stranger." Lily froze as a tall figure emerged from the shadows beside the barn, a rifle held casually but unmistakably at the ready. She could just make out the silhouette of a man in the moonlight, broad-shouldered and wearing a wide-brimmed hat. "I mean no harm," she said, her voice cracking with thirst. "My horse needs water and rest. I can pay." The figure stepped closer, and lantern light from the house caught his features, a strong jawline darkened by stubble, eyes narrowed with suspicion beneath the brim of his hat. He couldn't be much older than 30, with the weathered look of someone who lived by the land. "You're bleeding," he observed, nodding toward her arm. Lily instinctively touched the wound. "It's nothing." The man lowered his rifle slightly, looking past her to scan the horizon. "You alone out here?" "Yes," she answered, then added, "for now." That caught his attention. His eyes, blue, she could see now, sharpened with interest. "Trouble following you?" She considered lying, but saw little point. "Yes." To her surprise, his expression softened slightly. He propped his rifle against the fence post and stepped forward, reaching up to help her dismount. Lily hesitated, then accepted his assistance, nearly collapsing as her feet touched the ground. 2 days without proper rest had taken their toll. "Easy there," he said, steadying her with a firm grip. Up close, she could smell the scent of leather and wood smoke that clung to him. "I'm Zachariah Hayes. This is my ranch." "Lily," she replied, deliberately omitting her surname. I'm grateful for your help, Mr. Hayes, but I can't stay long. By morning I need to. The distant sound of hoofbeats cut her off. Zachariah's head snapped up, his body tensing. Without a word, he led her horse toward the barn, gesturing for Lily to follow quickly. Inside, he worked with practiced efficiency, unsaddling her mare and guiding Lily to a ladder leading to the hayloft. "Up there," he ordered quietly. "Don't make a sound." Lily climbed despite her exhaustion, nestling into the sweet-smelling hay as Zachariah covered her horse with a blanket and moved it into a stall beside his own animals. He extinguished the barn lantern and slipped outside just as the approaching riders entered the yard. From her hiding place, Lily could hear men's voices, though the words were muffled. She recognized Sheriff Tate's distinctive drawl and felt her heart constrict with fear. Had they tracked her here after all? Minutes passed like hours. Finally, she heard the riders depart, their horses' hooves fading into the distance. The barn door creaked open and Zachariah's boots sounded on the wooden floor below. "They're gone," he called up. "For now." Lily peered down from the loft. What did they want? Zachariah struck a match and relit the lantern, his face grim in the yellow light. "They're looking for a woman wanted for murder. A woman matching your description, Miss Wallace." Her blood ran cold at the use of her last name. "You told them I was here." "No." He crossed his arms. "But I'd like to hear your side of the story before I decide what to do next." Lily carefully descended the ladder, wincing as her injured arm protested the movement. She faced the rancher squarely, summoning what dignity she could despite her bedraggled appearance. "I didn't kill anyone. I was framed." Zachariah studied her for a long moment. "The sheriff says different. The sheriff didn't witness anything. He arrived after it happened and found me standing over the body with the murder weapon nearby." Lily's voice shook with suppressed emotion. "I was Jacob Thornton's housekeeper. I found him already dead." "And you ran." "I panicked," she admitted. "Sheriff Tate has always disliked me. He took one look at the scene and decided I was guilty. Would you have stayed to face a hanging?" Something flickered in Zachariah's eyes, understanding, perhaps, or simple recognition of the truth in her words. He uncrossed his arms and gestured toward the house. "Come on. That arm needs tending and you look dead on your feet." Lily hesitated. "Why help me? You don't know me." Zachariah paused at the barn door. "Let's just say I've learned not to take a lawman's word as gospel." His expression revealed nothing more. "You'll stay here till the dust settles. Then we'll figure out what to do." Against her better judgment, Lily followed him to the house. The simple gesture of kindness from this stranger was almost overwhelming after 2 days of desperate flight. As they stepped onto the porch, Zachariah turned to her. "One condition," he said firmly. "No more running. You want my help, you do things my way." Lily nodded slowly. What choice did she have? "Agreed." "Good." He pushed open the door. "Welcome to Cottonwood Ranch, Miss Wallace. For better or worse, you're under my protection now." The interior of Zachariah Hayes's home was unexpected. Rather than the sparse bachelor quarters Lily had anticipated, the main room was comfortably furnished with a well-crafted table, a pair of cushioned chairs before the stone fireplace, and bookshelves lining one wall. A colorful hand-woven rug covered part of the plank floor, and copper cookware hung neatly from hooks in the kitchen area. "Sit," he instructed, gesturing to one of the chairs while he stoked the dying embers in the fireplace. Once flames were dancing, he filled a basin with water from a pitcher and retrieved a wooden box from a cabinet. Lily sank into the chair, suddenly aware of how filthy she was covered in trail dust, her hair matted, dried blood on her sleeve. "I'm sorry about your chair," she murmured. Zachariah's mouth quirked in what might have been a smile. "It's seen worse." He set the basin and box on a small table beside her, Can you manage your sleeve, or do you need help? Heat rose to Lily's cheeks. I can manage. She carefully rolled up the torn fabric, revealing the ugly furrow where the bullet had grazed her upper arm. Zachariah whistled softly. Bullet wound. Sheriff didn't mention shooting at you. He wouldn't, Lily replied bitterly. He fired without warning as I was riding out of town. He dipped a cloth in the water and began cleaning the wound with surprisingly gentle hands. You're lucky. It's not deep, but it could have festered if left untended. Lily bit her lip against the sting. I've had little opportunity for medical care these past 2 days. 2 days. Zachariah shook his head. When did you last eat? As if summoned by his words, her stomach growled loudly. Lily flushed with embarrassment. Yesterday morning, some jerky and hardtack I had in my saddlebag. Without comment, Zachariah finished bandaging her arm, then moved to the kitchen area. Soon the smell of warming stew filled the room as he set a pot on the cook stove. While it heated, he sliced bread from a loaf and poured a cup of water, placing both before her. Drink slowly, he cautioned. Too much too fast will make you sick. Lily obeyed, savoring the cool water as it soothed her parched throat. The bread was slightly stale but tasted heavenly to her famished body. Zachariah watched her eat for a moment, then turned away. There's a washroom through that door, he said, pointing. I'll set out clean clothes for you. They'll be too large, but they're better than what you're wearing. Thank you, Lily said, realizing the inadequacy of the words. I don't know how to repay your kindness. Start by telling me the truth, he replied, ladling stew into a bowl. All of it. Over the simple meal, Lily recounted her story. She had come to Silverdale 2 years ago after her father's death left her penniless. Jacob Thornton, the town's wealthiest resident, had hired her as a housekeeper. The arrangement had been satisfactory until recently, when Thornton had begun to make unwelcome advances. I was planning to leave at the end of the month, she explained, cradling the mug of coffee Zachariah had given her. I'd saved enough for a stage ticket to Santa Fe, where my mother's cousin lives. But 3 days ago, I returned from the market to find Mr. Thornton dead in his study. He'd been stabbed with his own letter opener. And you were alone in the house with him. No, that's what I tried to tell Sheriff Tate. Mr. Thornton was entertaining a visitor that morning, a man I'd never seen before. Well-dressed, with an Eastern accent. When I left for the market, they were arguing about some business matter. Zachariah leaned forward. Did you get a name? No. But I heard something about mining rights before I stepped out. Lily sighed. When I returned, the visitor was gone and Mr. Thornton was dead. I was so shocked I didn't think clearly. I approached the body, even touched it to see if he was truly beyond help. That's when Sheriff Tate arrived. Why was the sheriff there? He claimed a neighbor reported a disturbance. But he seemed unsurprised to find Mr. Thornton dead, and he was too quick to accuse me. She met Zachariah's gaze directly. I've wondered since if he might have known the visitor. Zachariah's expression was thoughtful. Sheriff Tate's been in this territory for about 5 years. Before that, he worked for the railroad, providing security during construction. The way he said the word made it clear what kind of security that had been. He's not above taking money to look the other way. You think he could be involved? I think there's more to this story than a housekeeper killing her employer. Zachariah stood and collected their empty dishes. Thornton was a powerful man. He had interests in mining, cattle, and the railroad coming through. Plenty of people might have wanted him dead. None of which helps clear my name, Lily said wearily. 1 step at a time. Zachariah gestured toward the washroom. Get cleaned up and rest. Tomorrow's soon enough to worry about what comes next. The washroom was simple but clean, with a copper tub, a small stove for heating water, and a mirror above a washstand. True to his word, Zachariah had left clothes for her: a soft flannel shirt, wool trousers with suspenders, and thick socks. All were clearly his own. Lily filled the tub with lukewarm water from buckets he had provided and sank into it gratefully. As she washed away the grime of her journey, she considered her situation. Zachariah Hayes was a stranger, yet she'd placed her life in his hands. Was she simply trading one danger for another? Yet something about him inspired trust, despite his reservations about her story. After her bath, she donned the borrowed clothing, rolling up the sleeves and pant legs to make them somewhat manageable. Her reflection in the mirror showed a pale, thin face framed by damp auburn hair, her green eyes shadowed with exhaustion. When she emerged, Zachariah had prepared a bed for her in a small room off the main area. It was sparsely furnished but tidy, with a narrow bed covered in a patchwork quilt. "Get some sleep," he said from the doorway. "I'll be up for a while yet." Lily nodded, suddenly overwhelmed with fatigue. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes." "Zach," he corrected. "Out here formality seems pointless." "Zach," she repeated. "Then I'm just Lily." Something like a smile crossed his features. "Good night, just Lily." She managed a tired smile in return before he closed the door. Despite her circumstances, she felt safer than she had in days. As she slipped beneath the quilt, the last thing she saw before closing her eyes was moonlight streaming through the small window, turning the room silver. For the first time since fleeing Silverdale, Lily slept deeply, undisturbed by dreams. Morning came with the crowing of a rooster and the smell of coffee brewing. Lily awoke disoriented, momentarily forgetting where she was until memories of the previous night flooded back. Her body ached from days of hard riding, but her arm felt better. The inflammation around the bullet graze already reduced. She rose and tidied herself as best she could, using a comb she found on the small dresser to work through her tangled hair. The borrowed clothes were hopelessly large but clean, and for that she was grateful. When she emerged from the bedroom, she found Zachariah standing at the cook stove, turning bacon in a cast iron skillet. He glanced up at her approach, his expression unreadable. "You look better," he observed. "Sleep well, better than I expected," Lily admitted. "Thank you." He nodded toward the coffee pot. "Help yourself. Breakfast is nearly ready." Lily poured coffee into a mug and stood by the window, looking out at the ranch in daylight for the first time. The property was larger than she'd realized, with corrals, a chicken coop, and what appeared to be a vegetable garden beyond the barn. In the distance, rolling hills gave way to the stark beauty of mesas against the clear blue sky. "Your ranch is lovely," she said. "Do you manage it alone?" "Mostly. I hire hands during roundup, but day to day it's just me." He transferred bacon to a plate and cracked eggs into the hot grease. "My brother Daniel comes by when he can, but he's got his own place 20 miles west. It seems like a lot of work for one person." Zach shrugged. "Keeps me busy." He brought plates to the table and gestured for her to join him. "I've been thinking about your situation." Lily sat down, apprehension tightening her stomach. "And Sheriff Tate and his deputies won't give up easily. They'll be back, probably with more men." He cut into his eggs. "We need to establish why you're here in case anyone asks questions." "What do you suggest?" "You're my cousin from back east, come to help after hearing about my wife's passing." His voice was matter of fact. "That explains your presence and gives you a reason to stay indoors if anyone comes calling." Lily blinked at him. "Your wife," a shadow crossed his face. "Rebecca died 2 years ago. Fever. Everyone in these parts knows it." "I'm sorry," Lily said softly. Zach nodded once, acknowledgement rather than acceptance. "It's a story that holds water. No one will question it." "And then what?" Lily asked. "I can't hide forever." Then we find out what really happened to Jacob Thornton. He met her gaze directly. If you're innocent, there's a killer walking free, and I suspect that killer has connections to something bigger than a dispute with a housekeeper. Lily studied him, confusion evident in her expression. Why are you doing this? You're risking everything to help a stranger. Zach was silent for a moment, seeming to weigh his words. Let's just say I understand what it's like to be wrongfully accused with no one willing to listen. Before she could press for details, he stood and carried his plate to the wash basin. I need to see to the livestock. You should stay inside today, rest that arm. There are books if you get bored. And with that, he was gone, leaving Lily with more questions than answers about her unlikely protector. The day passed slowly for Lily, confined to the house while Zach worked outside. She explored her surroundings, finding evidence of a woman's touch in small details: embroidered cushions, carefully preserved wildflowers in a frame, a shelf of books that included poetry and novels alongside practical guides to ranching. Rebecca's presence lingered in the home she had shared with Zach. Lily felt like an intruder, wearing borrowed clothes and occupying spaces once filled by another woman's life. Yet there was something comforting in these remnants of domesticity, as if the house itself offered sanctuary. In the afternoon, Lily found herself drawn to the bookshelf. Her fingers traced the spines until she selected a well-worn copy of Tennyson's poems. Opening it, she discovered a pressed wildflower marking a page and an inscription. To Zach, that you might find beauty even in the wilderness. With love, Rebecca. She closed the book quickly, feeling as though she had intruded on something deeply personal. As she returned it to the shelf, her attention was caught by a small wooden box tucked between larger volumes. Curiosity overcame her better judgment, and she opened it to find a collection of newspaper clippings and official-looking documents. The topmost clipping, yellowed with age, bore a headline that made her breath catch. Hayes brothers cleared of rustling charges. Beneath it, a smaller headline read, True culprits found among Cattlemen's Association leadership. Before she could read further, the front door opened. Lily hastily replaced the box and turned to find Zach watching her, his expression guarded, finding ways to pass the time. He asked, removing his hat and hanging it on a peg by the door. Lily flushed with guilt. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been prying. To her surprise, he didn't seem angry. Curious about the man sheltering you, can't blame you for that. He crossed to the wash basin and splashed water on his face and hands. I'd wonder about you if you weren't cautious. The newspaper article, she ventured. About rustling charges. Zach dried his face with a towel, his back to her. 5 years ago, my brother and I were accused of stealing cattle from the big ranchers in the territory. We spent 2 months in jail waiting for trial. But you were innocent. He turned to face her. Yes, we were set up by men who wanted our water rights. Men with money and influence who could make the law work for them. His eyes held her steadily. So when you tell me you're being framed for murder, I'm inclined to believe you, understanding dawned. That's why you're helping me. Partly. He moved to the stove and began preparing their evening meal. Also because I don't much care for Sheriff Tate. Man's been on the take since he arrived in the territory. Lily approached cautiously, picking up a knife to help slice vegetables. You said Thornton had mining interests. Could that be related to his murder? Zach nodded thoughtfully. Silver was discovered in the hills north of Silverdale last year. There's been a rush of Eastern money coming in, buying up claims. Thornton was positioned to profit considerably. The man who was visiting him, the one I saw before I went to the market, he had an Eastern accent, expensive clothes. Mining investor, maybe. Zach added the vegetables to a pot. Or someone representing the railroad. They're surveying for a line through Silverdale." "How would we find out who he was?" Zach glanced at her, one eyebrow raised at her use of we. After a moment, he seemed to accept her partnership in the investigation. "I need to ride into town tomorrow for supplies. I can ask around, see what visitors have been in the area lately." "That's dangerous," Lily protested. "What if someone recognizes me?" "You're staying here," he said firmly. "I'll go alone." Lily opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. She was in no position to dictate terms. "Be careful. If Sheriff Tate suspects you're helping me." "Tate doesn't worry me. Besides, as far as anyone knows, I'm just a rancher buying supplies." He stirred the pot, then covered it. "Now tell me more about Thornton. What kind of man was he?" As they prepared the meal together, Lily shared what she knew of her former employer. Jacob Thornton had been in his 50s, a widower with no children, who had come west 20 years earlier and built a fortune from almost nothing. He was respected in Silverdale, generous to the church and civic projects, but demanding in business. He could be harsh with those who crossed him, Lily admitted. "I saw him ruin a man over a disputed boundary line last year. But murder," she shook her head. "That seems extreme even for his enemies." "Money makes men do terrible things," Zach said, setting plates on the table. "And there's a lot of money at stake with the railroad coming through." They ate in companionable silence for a while. Lily found herself studying Zach when he wasn't looking, the strong line of his jaw, the way his dark hair curled slightly at his collar, the capable hands that moved with such assurance. He was handsome in a rugged way, his features weathered by sun and wind, but it was his quiet confidence that she found most appealing. "You're staring," he observed without looking up. Lily felt heat rise to her face. "I was just wondering about your story, how you ended up here." For a moment, she thought he might deflect the question, but then he set down his fork. "My father brought us west when I was 10. He had dreams of building something lasting. We started small, a few cattle, this land." His expression softened with memory. "He taught us everything, me and Daniel. When he died, we kept it going. And then the rustling accusation. That came later, after I married Rebecca." His eyes grew distant. "She stood by me through the trial, even when it looked like we'd hang. When we were cleared, we came back here determined to rebuild." "But then she fell ill," Lily said gently. Zach nodded, his jaw tightening. "Life has a way of taking what you love most." He stood abruptly. "I'll need to leave at first light tomorrow. It's a long ride to Bent Creek." "Bent Creek," Lily frowned. "Not Silverdale. Silverdale's too dangerous." "Bent Creek is smaller, but they'll have what I need, and I can ask questions without raising suspicion." As they cleared the table, their hands brushed briefly. Lily felt an unexpected jolt at the contact, a warmth that spread up her arm. She glanced at Zach, but his expression revealed nothing. That night, as she lay in bed listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch settling for the night, Lily found herself thinking not of her predicament, but of Zach Hayes and the sadness that seemed to shadow him. She wondered if he had truly moved beyond his grief, or if he simply existed day to day, managing his ranch and keeping the world at a distance. She fell asleep with these thoughts, unaware that in the main room, Zach sat before the dying fire, similarly preoccupied with the woman fate had brought to his door. Morning came too quickly. Lily awoke to the sounds of movement in the main room and emerged to find Zach already dressed for travel, checking the contents of his saddlebags. "You're leaving now?" she asked, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders against the pre-dawn chill. He nodded. "I want to reach Bent Creek by mid-morning." He slung the saddlebags over his shoulder and turned to face her. "There's food in the pantry. Stay inside, keep the doors locked. If anyone comes by, I'll hide in the root cellar you showed me yesterday." Lily approached him, suddenly anxious. Please be careful. I couldn't bear it if you came to harm because of me." Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, perhaps, at her concern. "I've handled worse than a trip to town." He hesitated, then added, "But I appreciate the sentiment." They stood awkwardly for a moment, neither quite sure how to say goodbye. Finally, Zach reached into his pocket and withdrew a small pistol, offering it to her. "You know how to use this." Lily took the weapon cautiously. "My father taught me years ago." "Good, just in case." He opened the door, letting in a rush of cool morning air. "I should be back before dark." "Zach," she called as he stepped onto the porch. When he turned, she said simply, "Thank you." He tipped his hat in acknowledgement, then strode toward the barn. Lily watched until he emerged moments later on horseback, a tall figure silhouetted against the lightening eastern sky. Only when he disappeared from view did she close and lock the door, acutely aware of her solitude. The day stretched endlessly before her. To occupy herself, Lily decided to clean the already tidy house, finding comfort in the familiar routine of domestic chores. She swept floors, washed the few dishes left from breakfast, and even ventured to gather eggs from the chicken coop when she was certain no one was approaching. By mid-afternoon, restlessness had set in. She found herself checking the horizon frequently, though she knew Zach couldn't possibly return for hours yet. To distract herself, she returned to the bookshelf, this time selecting a novel rather than prying into Zach's personal effects. As she settled into a chair with the book, a distant sound caught her attention: horses approaching. Her heart leaped into her throat. Was Zach returning early? Or had Sheriff Tate come back with more men? Moving quickly, Lily peered through the window, careful to remain hidden behind the curtain. What she saw made her blood run cold. 3 riders were approaching the ranch, and none was Zach. She recognized Sheriff Tate's broad figure immediately, his badge catching the afternoon sun. With trembling hands, Lily gathered her few belongings and the pistol Zach had given her. The root cellar, accessible through a trapdoor in the pantry, was her designated hiding place. She descended the wooden steps and pulled the door closed above her, plunging herself into musty darkness. The cellar was cool and smelled of earth and preserved vegetables. Lily found a crate to sit on and tried to steady her breathing, straining to hear what was happening above. Muffled voices and the sound of boots on the wooden floor told her the men had entered the house. "Search everything," she heard Sheriff Tate order. "She's got to be around here somewhere." Lily's fingers tightened on the pistol. Would they find the trapdoor? Had she left any obvious signs of her presence? She thought of Zach, returning to find his home ransacked, or worse, the sheriff waiting for him. Time crawled by in the darkness. Eventually, the sounds above faded. Lily waited, counting slowly to 100, then 200, before daring to push the trapdoor open a crack. Silence greeted her. She eased it open further and climbed cautiously into the pantry. The house was empty, but signs of the search were everywhere: drawers pulled out, cupboards open, even the mattress on her bed upturned. Fury replaced fear as she surveyed the damage. These men had violated Zach's home, all because of her. She was setting things to rights when a new sound froze her in place: a single horse, approaching rapidly. Grabbing the pistol again, Lily positioned herself beside the front window, ready to flee or fight if necessary. Relief washed over her when she recognized Zach's tall form dismounting. She flung open the door before he reached it. "Thank God it's you," she breathed. Zach took in her disheveled appearance and the pistol in her hand. His eyes moved past her to the disarray visible within. "What happened?" "Sheriff Tate and 2 deputies. They searched the house, but I hid in the cellar." Lily stepped back to let him enter. "They left about an hour ago." Zach closed the door firmly behind him, his expression grim. "Did they say anything? give any indication of what they knew, only that they were looking for me. Lily set the pistol on the table. "I'm so sorry about your home." He waved away her apology, more concerned with her safety than his possessions. "Did they find anything that would connect you to me?" "I don't think so. I had nothing with me when I arrived." Lily studied his face, noting the tension in his jaw. "Did you learn anything in Bent Creek?" Zach removed his hat and coat, revealing dust-covered clothes beneath. He looked tired, but there was an alertness in his eyes that suggested his trip had not been fruitless. "I did," he confirmed. Jacob Thornton had a visitor the day he died, a man named Harlan Blackwell, representing Eastern mining interests. He's been buying up claims throughout the territory, some by fair means, others less so. "That must be who I saw," Lily said, excitement building. "This Blackwell, where is he now?" "That's the interesting part." Zach poured himself a glass of water and drank deeply before continuing. "According to the barkeep in Bent Creek, Blackwell left for Denver the same day Thornton was killed, rather suddenly by all accounts. So he could have killed Thornton and fled," Lily reasoned. "But why frame me? Opportunity, maybe. You were there, you'd be an easy scapegoat." Zach frowned. "But there's more. Blackwell wasn't working alone. He's connected to a consortium of investors, including our friend Sheriff Tate." Lily sank into a chair. "Tate is involved with the mining interests." "Deeply. He's been helping secure properties for the consortium, using his badge to intimidate reluctant sellers." Zach sat across from her. "If Thornton refused to sell his claims, it gives Tate a motive to want him dead," Lily finished, "and a reason to ensure someone else took the blame." "Exactly." Hope rose in Lily's chest. "If we can prove this connection, we'd still need evidence that Blackwell killed Thornton," Zach cautioned. "Suspicion isn't enough." "But it's a start," Lily insisted. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand impulsively. "Thank you for believing in me." Zach looked down at their joined hands, a complex emotion crossing his features. After a moment, he gently extracted his fingers. "Don't thank me yet. We're still a long way from clearing your name." That evening, as they sat before the fire after a simple meal, Lily found herself studying Zach's profile in the flickering light. In just a few days, this man had become her protector, her ally, and perhaps even her friend. Yet she sensed walls around him that few were permitted to breach. "Tell me about Rebecca," she said softly. Zach's shoulders stiffened, but he didn't reject the question outright. After a long silence, he spoke, his voice low. "She was a schoolteacher in Bent Creek when I met her. Educated, refined, nothing like the women out here. She could have had any man, but she chose me." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "She loved books, poetry, believed in making beauty wherever she went. She sounds remarkable. She was." His gaze remained fixed on the flames. "When I was arrested, she never doubted me, not for a moment. Visited me in jail every day, after when we came home." He swallowed hard. "We had 8 months together before the fever took her, not nearly enough time." "I'm sorry," Lily whispered, understanding now the depth of his loss. Zach nodded once, acknowledgement of her sympathy. Then, as if needing to shift the focus, he asked, "What about you? Was there someone before all this?" Lily shook her head. "No one serious. In Silverdale, being a housekeeper didn't exactly make me a catch." She smiled wryly. "My father always said I was too independent for my own good. Too quick to speak my mind. He said that like it was a fault. In his world it was. He wanted me to marry well, have a comfortable life." Lily sighed. "Instead, I ended up alone in a town where I knew no one, working for a man who—" She trailed off. Zach's eyes sharpened. "Thornton. Did he mistreat you?" "Not exactly. But recently he'd begun to suggest that my position could include additional duties." Lily's cheeks burned at the memory. "I refused, of course. That's why I was planning to leave. Anger flickered across Zach's face. No woman should have to endure that. Many do, with far less recourse than I had. Lily stared into the fire. At least I had savings, a place to go. Many women have neither. They fell silent, each lost in thought. Outside, the wind had picked up, rattling the windows and sending drafts curling around their feet. Lily shivered slightly. Cold? Zach asked, already reaching for another log to add to the fire. A little. It gets much colder here than in Silverdale. Higher elevation. He poked at the fire until it blazed higher. Winter comes early in these parts, another month and we could have snow. The word "we" hung in the air between them, a reminder that Lily's presence was temporary. Once her name was cleared, if it could be cleared, she would move on, continue to Santa Fe as she'd planned. The thought brought an unexpected hollowness to her chest. In just a few days, this ranch had begun to feel like a haven, and Zach had become someone she cared for, despite the brief acquaintance. As if sensing her thoughts, he rose abruptly. "It's late. We should both get some rest. Tomorrow we need to consider our next steps." Lily nodded, reluctant to break the intimacy of the moment but aware of the boundaries between them. "Good night, Zach." He paused at the doorway to his bedroom, looking back at her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. "Good night, Lily." The following morning brought a change in the weather, dark clouds gathering on the horizon and a chill in the air that promised rain. Lily awoke to find Zach already outside, securing equipment and moving livestock to sheltered areas in preparation for the storm. She watched him from the window as she prepared breakfast, admiring the efficient way he moved, the ease with which he handled the nervous horses. There was a quiet competence about him that she found increasingly attractive. When he came in, bringing the scent of rain and hay with him, Lily had hot coffee and biscuits waiting. He accepted both with a nod of thanks, his eyes lingering on her face a moment longer than necessary. "Storm's coming," he said, warming his hands around the coffee mug. "A big one, from the look of those clouds. Will the animals be all right? They'll manage. I've moved the most vulnerable into the barn." He glanced at the window where the first raindrops were beginning to strike. "No one will be traveling in this weather, which gives us time to plan." Over breakfast, they discussed their limited options. The ideal scenario would be finding evidence linking Blackwell or Sheriff Tate to Thornton's murder, but obtaining such proof seemed nearly impossible from their isolated position. "What if we went to the territorial marshal?" Lily suggested. "Surely he would investigate if we presented what we know." Zach shook his head. "Marshal Parker is based in Santa Fe. By the time we reached him and convinced him to look into it, the trail would be cold." He pushed his plate away thoughtfully. "No, we need something more immediate." "Like what?" "Like proof that Blackwell was still in Silverdale when Thornton was killed, not on his way to Denver as he claimed." Zach's expression was intent. "If we could place him in town at the time of the murder." "That would at least cast doubt on the case against me," Lily finished. "But how do we get that information?" Before Zach could answer, a tremendous crack of thunder shook the house. The storm had arrived in full force, rain lashing against the windows and wind howling around the eaves. "No traveling today, that's certain," Zach observed. He rose and moved to add wood to the stove. "We'll use the time to think." The day passed in unexpected domesticity, the storm confining them to the house. Lily baked bread using the last of Zach's flour, while he repaired tack and mended a shirt torn during his ranch work. They spoke little, but the silence was comfortable, each aware of the other's presence in a way that required no words. By evening, the storm showed no signs of abating. Rain continued to fall heavily, and occasional flashes of lightning illuminated the landscape, followed by rolling thunder. They ate dinner by lamplight, the atmosphere intimate in the golden glow. "Where did you learn to bake like this?" Zach asked, savoring a slice of Lily's bread. "My mother taught me before she died. She believed a woman should know how to make a home, regardless of her circumstances." Lily smiled at the memory. "She would have liked your ranch. She always said a house needs open spaces around it to breathe properly." Wise woman. Zach refilled their cups with coffee. "You never finished telling me about your plans before all this happened." Lily considered the question. "I was going to Santa Fe to stay with my mother's cousin, at least initially. After that," she shrugged, "I hadn't thought much beyond escape. And now I just want my name cleared, to not be looking over my shoulder for the rest of my life." She met his gaze directly. "What about you? Will you stay here always?" Something flickered in his eyes, uncertainty, perhaps. "This land is in my blood, my father's legacy." He looked around the room, seeming to see beyond its walls to the ranch beyond. "But sometimes I wonder if there could be more." The admission surprised her. "What kind of more?" Zach hesitated, as if he'd already said more than he intended. "Just idle thoughts." Before Lily could press further, a loud knocking at the door startled them both. They froze, eyes meeting in alarm. Who would be out in such weather? Zach motioned for Lily to retreat to the bedroom while he approached the door cautiously. She complied, but left the door ajar enough to hear. "Who's there?" Zach called. "Daniel Hayes. Open up, brother, before I drown out here." Lily heard Zach's relieved laugh as he unbolted the door. A gust of wind and rain entered with the visitor, along with a man's deep voice, similar to Zach's but with a lighter tone. "Thought I'd never make it through that creek crossing. River's rising fast." The newcomer's boots squelched on the wooden floor. "Hope you've got coffee hot," because he broke off suddenly. "Well now, what's this?" Lily realized he must have spotted the second-place setting at the table, evidence of her presence. She stepped into the doorway, deciding it was better to face this newcomer directly than hide like a guilty secret. Daniel Hayes was instantly recognizable as Zach's brother, the same tall build and strong features, though his hair was lighter and his face more openly expressive. He stared at Lily in undisguised surprise, then turned to Zach with raised eyebrows. "Didn't realize you had company, brother." Zach's expression was guarded. "Daniel, this is Lily Wallace. She's a friend in need of help." Daniel studied her with sharp interest. "Wallace. The name sounds familiar." His eyes widened suddenly. "Wait, not the woman they're hunting for Thornton's murder?" The directness of the question left no room for evasion. Lily stepped forward, chin raised. "Yes, though I'm innocent of that crime." Daniel let out a low whistle and turned to his brother. "You always did have a knack for finding trouble, Zach, but harboring a fugitive, that's a new level even for you." "She's innocent," Zach said firmly, "and I'd appreciate your discretion on the matter." The brothers stared at each other for a long moment, some unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, Daniel shrugged out of his dripping coat. "Well, since I'm here and not likely to be leaving in this weather, you might as well tell me the whole story." He flashed a surprisingly warm smile at Lily. "And I'd be grateful for some of that coffee I smell." Over the next hour, they brought Daniel up to speed on everything they had learned. To Lily's relief, he listened without interruption or judgment, occasionally asking clarifying questions but reserving his opinion until they had finished. "So this Blackwell character and Sheriff Tate are working together on land deals," he summarized, leaning back in his chair. "And you think they conspired to kill Thornton over mining rights, then framed Miss Wallace here for convenience?" "That's our theory," Zach confirmed. Daniel rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. "It fits with what I've been hearing about Tate. Man's been throwing his weight around more than usual lately." He glanced at Lily. "No offense, Miss Wallace, but why frame you specifically? Why not Thornton's business partner or someone else with an obvious motive? The question gave Lily pause. I don't know. Perhaps because I was there, an easy target, she frowned. Or perhaps because I had recently rejected Mr. Thornton's advances. He might have mentioned it to others, making it seem I had a grudge. Or, Daniel said slowly, there's something else at play here, something we're missing. The three fell silent, considering the implications. Outside, the storm continued unabated, rain drumming on the roof and wind whistling through the eaves. Whatever the reason, Zach said finally, we need to clear Lily's name. We need evidence. Daniel nodded, his expression turning serious. I might be able to help with that. I'm heading to Silverdale in a few days to deliver horses to the livery. I could ask around, see what people know about Blackwell's movements that day. It's too dangerous, Lily protested. If Sheriff Tate suspects you're gathering information. He has no reason to connect me to you, Daniel assured her. Besides, I'm just a simple horse trader interested in local gossip. His eyes twinkled with sudden humor. And I have a talent for getting people to talk. Zach studied his brother, concern evident in his expression. Be careful, Daniel. Tate's desperate if he's resorting to murder. Always am, brother. Daniel yawned and stretched. Now, if you don't mind, it's been a long ride in miserable conditions. I could use some sleep. After arranging bedding for Daniel on the floor near the fire, they retired for the night, the storm's fury finally beginning to wane. Lily lay awake in her borrowed bed, listening to the diminishing rain and considering this new development. Daniel's arrival complicated matters, introducing another person who knew her secret. Yet his willingness to help, his easy acceptance of her presence, suggested he was cut from the same cloth as his brother, a man of integrity, willing to stand against injustice. She found herself wondering about the brothers' relationship, the obvious bond between them despite their different temperaments. Daniel seemed more open, more willing to engage with the world, while Zach kept his thoughts and feelings carefully contained. Yet it was Zach who had taken her in without hesitation, who had believed her story when no one else would. Zach, whose quiet strength had become her anchor in the storm of recent events. With these thoughts swirling in her mind, Lily finally drifted into sleep, dreaming of a future where she no longer lived in fear, a future that, increasingly, she couldn't imagine without Zach Hayes in it. Morning brought clear skies and a washed, clean landscape. The storm had passed, leaving puddles in the yard and a crisp freshness to the air. Lily awoke to the smell of coffee and the low murmur of the brothers' voices in the main room. She dressed quickly in her borrowed clothes, running a comb through her hair and pinching color into her cheeks before joining the men. They were seated at the table, Daniel gesturing animatedly as he spoke. Biggest strike yet, according to Jenkins. Silver vein running right through Thornton's property. He broke off as Lily entered. Good morning, Miss Wallace. Please call me Lily, she said, accepting the cup of coffee Zach offered her. Lily, then. Daniel nodded toward his brother. I was just telling Zach some interesting news from Bent Creek. Seems the silver vein everyone's been hunting runs directly through Thornton's land. Which explains why Blackwell was so eager to acquire it, Zach added. That claim could be worth a fortune. Lily sat down, considering this new information. So Thornton refused to sell and Blackwell killed him for it. It's a powerful motive, Daniel agreed. And with Tate's help, they could ensure no serious investigation took place. We still need proof, Zach reminded them. Speculation won't clear Lily's name. They spent the morning discussing possibilities, eventually settling on a plan. Daniel would continue to Silverdale as scheduled, gathering what information he could about Blackwell's movements on the day of the murder. Meanwhile, Zach would reach out to a former territorial marshal he knew, A man named Cooper who might be willing to investigate unofficially. What about me? Lily asked, frustrated at her enforced inaction. I can't just hide here forever. For now, it's the safest option, Zach said firmly. Once we have more information, we can decide next steps. Daniel prepared to leave after their midday meal, his horse rested, and the roads passable after the storm. As he saddled up, he took Zach aside for a private word, though Lily could still hear their conversation from the porch where she stood. Be careful, brother, Daniel said quietly. This isn't just about clearing her name anymore, is it? Zach's response was too low to catch, but his brother's reply was clear enough. I see the way you look at her. Just guard your heart, Zach. It's been through enough. They embraced briefly, then Daniel swung into the saddle. He tipped his hat to Lily as he rode past. Don't worry, Miss Lily. We'll get this sorted out. She watched him ride away, then turned to find Zach studying her with an unreadable expression. Had he guessed that she'd overheard? More importantly, was Daniel right about Zach's feelings toward her? The thought both thrilled and terrified her. In the short time they'd known each other, Zach had become important to her in ways she hadn't anticipated. But she was still a fugitive, her future uncertain. And Zach was still mourning a wife he had deeply loved. We should check the fences after the storm, Zach said, breaking the moment. If you're up for a ride. Lily seized the opportunity to escape the confines of the house. I'd like that. They saddled horses, Zach's sturdy gelding and a gentle mare for Lily, and rode out across the ranch. The land stretched before them, vibrant after the rain, patches of late wildflowers adding color to the greening landscape. Lily breathed deeply, savoring the scent of damp earth and pine. Zach led her along the property's boundaries, stopping occasionally to repair sections of fence damaged by the storm. Lily helped as best she could, holding tools or steadying posts while he worked. They spoke little, but the silence was companionable rather than awkward. At the western edge of the ranch, they paused to water the horses at a small stream, swollen from the recent rains. Zach dismounted and helped Lily down, his hands lingering briefly at her waist. It's beautiful here, she said, gazing across the valley to the mountains beyond. Peaceful. Zach nodded, following her gaze. My father chose this land because of that view, said a man could look at those mountains every day of his life and never tire of them. He was right. Lily turned to face him. Thank you for sharing it with me, even under these circumstances. Something shifted in Zach's expression, a softening around his eyes. You're welcome here, Lily, circumstances aside. The simple statement touched her deeply. I've been a burden to you, no. He cut her off gently. You haven't, in fact. He hesitated, seeming to struggle with his words. The ranch has felt more like home with you in it. The admission hung between them, weighted with meaning neither was quite ready to acknowledge. Lily's heart beat faster as Zach's gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. For a breathless moment, she thought he might kiss her. Then he stepped back, clearing his throat. We should finish checking the north pasture before dark. Lily nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. Of course. As they remounted and continued their ride, she wondered if she had imagined the moment of connection. But occasionally, she would catch Zach watching her with an expression that suggested otherwise. By the time they returned to the ranch house, shadows were lengthening across the yard. They tended to the horses together, working in easy synchronization. Inside, they prepared a simple supper, moving around each other in the kitchen as if they'd been doing so for years rather than days. Later, as they sat before the fire, Lily found herself thinking of Daniel's warning to his brother. Guard your heart, Zach. It's been through enough. She wondered what Zach had said in response and what it might mean for whatever was growing between them. Penny for your thoughts, Zach said, breaking into her reverie. Lily smiled. They're probably not worth that much. I disagree. His voice was soft, his eyes reflecting the firelight. Your thoughts matter to me, Lily. The simple sincerity of his statement emboldened her. I was thinking about what happens after all this. If we clear my name, I mean. You'd go to Santa Fe as you planned. I don't know any more. She met his gaze directly. A week ago, that was all I wanted. Now, he prompted when she hesitated. Now I'm not sure what I want. She took a deep breath. Except that I don't want to leave you without knowing what might have been between us. Zach's expression stilled, a complex emotion crossing his features. He set down his coffee cup carefully, as if buying time to formulate his response. Lily, he began, his voice rough, I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought about it, about you. But my life is here on this ranch. It's isolated, demanding, and I'm not. He paused. I'm not sure I have much to offer a woman like you. A woman like me, she echoed. Someone educated, used to town life. Someone who deserves more than a widower still carrying his past. Lily moved from her chair to kneel beside him, taking his hand in hers. Zach, I've never felt more at home than I have these past days. Not in Silverdale, not even in my father's house. She squeezed his fingers. And as for your past, we all carry ours with us. That doesn't mean there isn't room for a future, too. For a long moment, he simply looked at her, searching her face as if for confirmation of her words. Then, with a gentleness that nearly undid her, he touched her cheek. I never expected you, he said softly. Never thought I'd feel this way again. Neither did I. Lily's heart raced at his touch. But here we are. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, Zach leaned forward and brushed his lips against hers. The kiss was tentative at first, a question rather than a demand. When Lily responded, moving closer and sliding her hand to his shoulder, it deepened into something more definite, a promise, perhaps, or a beginning. When they finally separated, both slightly breathless, Zach rested his forehead against hers. We should probably talk about this, he murmured. Lily nodded, though she was reluctant to break the moment with words. We should. But before either could speak, the sound of approaching horses shattered the quiet evening. Zach was on his feet instantly, moving to the window with the fluid grace of a man accustomed to danger. Riders, he reported grimly. At least 3 coming fast. Lily joined him, peering through the darkened glass. Sheriff Tate, can't tell yet. Zach moved quickly to retrieve his rifle from beside the door. But whoever it is, they're in a hurry. Get your things, just in case. Heart pounding, Lily gathered her meager belongings while Zach extinguished all but one lamp. The kiss that had seemed so momentous minutes ago was now overshadowed by the immediate threat. If it's trouble, there's a passage from the root cellar that leads to a cave in the hillside, Zach explained rapidly. Follow it until you reach the open air, then head west. There's an old line shack about 2 miles along the creek. I'm not leaving you to face them alone, Lily protested. Zach's expression was unyielding. If it comes to that, you will. I can handle myself, but not if I'm worried about you. Before she could argue further, the riders entered the yard. Through the window, Lily recognized the lead figure with a jolt of fear, Sheriff Tate, his badge glinting in the moonlight. But it was the second rider who truly alarmed her. That's him, she whispered urgently. The man who was with Thornton the day he died. Blackwell. Zach's jaw tightened. Stay back from the windows if they know you're here. A heavy knock sounded at the door. Hayes, open up in the name of the law. Zach exchanged a quick glance with Lily, who retreated to the shadows near the pantry door. With deliberate slowness, he crossed to the entrance and opened it partway, his body blocking the view inside. Sheriff Tate, he acknowledged coolly. What brings you out this way so late? Official business, Hayes. We're looking for a fugitive, the Wallace woman. Got information she might be headed this way. Tate's voice was gruff with authority. Need to search your property. At this hour, seems unlikely she'd be traveling in the dark. Zach didn't budge from the doorway. Besides, I haven't seen anyone pass through in days. Step aside, Hayes. Tate's tone hardened. Don't make this difficult. From her hiding place, Lily could see Zach's shoulders stiffen. For a terrible moment, she thought he might resist, might invite violence that would surely end badly for him. Then, with apparent reluctance, he stepped back. Make it quick, he said. Some of us have work at dawn. Sheriff Tate entered first, followed by Blackwell and a deputy Lily didn't recognize. All three men scanned the room, their gazes passing over her hiding spot without pausing. She pressed herself against the wall, hardly daring to breathe. Nice place you've got, Hayes, Blackwell commented, his eastern accent pronounced. Remote, though. Ever consider selling? Zach's expression remained neutral. It's not for sale. Everything has its price. Blackwell smiled thinly, but we can discuss that another time. For now, we're more interested in your guest. Don't know what you're talking about, Zach replied. I live alone. Sheriff Tate snorted. 2 plates on the table say different, he nodded to his deputy. Check the bedrooms. Lily's heart pounded as the deputy moved toward the back of the house. Zach's eyes flickered briefly to her hiding place, a silent warning to stay hidden. My brother was here earlier, Zach explained. Rode out this afternoon. Convenient. Tate circled the room, picking up objects and setting them down with deliberate carelessness. You know, Hayes, harboring a fugitive is a serious offense. Could lose your ranch over something like that. Good thing I'm not harboring anyone then. The deputy returned from the bedrooms. No one there, Sheriff, but there's women's things in one room. Hairbrush, some clothes. Tate's eyes narrowed. Is that so? He advanced on Zach. Want to change your story, Hayes? Zach stood his ground. Those belong to my wife. I haven't cleared out her things. Your wife's been dead 2 years, Tate scoffed. Try again. Sheriff, Blackwell interrupted smoothly. Perhaps Mr. Hayes simply has a lady friend who visits occasionally. That's hardly a crime. The suggestion carried insinuations that made Lily flush with anger, but Zach's expression didn't change. My personal life isn't your concern, Sheriff. Now if you've finished your search. Tate wasn't ready to leave. We know the Wallace woman was heading this way, Hayes. Got a witness saw her on this road the night of her escape. He stepped closer, intimidating. If I find out you've been hiding her. You won't, because I haven't, Zach said flatly. Now, unless you have a warrant for my arrest, I'd appreciate it if you'd leave. I've got cattle to move at first light. For a tense moment, it seemed Sheriff Tate might push the confrontation further. Then Blackwell placed a restraining hand on his arm. Come, Sheriff, we have other places to check tonight. His cold eyes assessed Zach. But we'll be watching this property, Mr. Hayes. If the Wallace woman shows up, I trust you'll do your civic duty and inform the authorities. Zach nodded curtly. If I see her, you'll be the first to know. The men filed out, Tate lingering to deliver a final warning glare before the door closed behind them. Zach remained motionless, listening to their departure until the sound of hoofbeats faded into the distance. Only then did he turn to Lily, his face grim. They'll be back. With reinforcements, most likely. Lily emerged from her hiding place, trembling with reaction. They know I'm here, or at least they suspect. Blackwell recognized something, Zach agreed. Maybe something of yours or just a woman's presence. He ran a hand through his hair, thinking rapidly. We can't wait for Daniel or Cooper. We need to move. Where? Lily asked. If they're watching the property. They'll watch the roads, but there are other ways off this ranch. Zach moved to a chest in the corner and extracted a map, spreading it on the table. Here. There's a trail through the mountains that connects to the old Spanish mission road. From there, we can reach Santa Fe without passing through any towns." Lily looked up sharply. "Zach, you can't leave your ranch. I'm not sending you alone." His tone brooked no argument. "Besides, I need to speak with the territorial marshal directly. This goes beyond clearing your name now. Tate and Blackwell are corrupting the law for their own gain. They need to be stopped." Lily studied him, seeing the determination in his stance. "When do we leave?" "Tonight." "As soon as we've gathered supplies." Zach folded the map decisively. "Pack only what you need. We'll travel light and fast." As they prepared for the journey, gathering food, clothing, and weapons, Lily was struck by the irony of their situation. Once again, she was fleeing in the night, her life in danger. But this time, she wasn't alone. This time, she had Zach beside her. Within an hour, they were ready. Zach had written a brief note for Daniel, explaining their departure and instructing him to contact Cooper immediately. He left it in a prearranged hiding place, knowing his brother would check there when he found the ranch empty. They led their horses quietly through the darkness, avoiding the main trail where Tate might have left a man watching. Only when they were well away from the ranch did they mount and begin the journey in earnest. The moon provided enough light to navigate the narrow path Zach had chosen, winding upward into the foothills. Lily rode close behind him, her body aching with tension, ears straining for sounds of pursuit. "How long to Santa Fe?" she asked when they paused to water the horses at a small stream. 3 days if the weather holds," Zach replied, scanning the terrain ahead. 2 if we push hard." Lily nodded, steeling herself for the difficult journey. "Zach, I want you to know whatever happens I'm grateful for everything you've done." He turned to her, his face half hidden in shadow. "Don't talk like that. We're going to make it." "I know," she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "But still, thank you." Zach stepped closer, taking her hand in his. "I'd do it again, Lily. All of it." In that moment, with danger at their heels and an uncertain future ahead, Lily knew with absolute certainty that she had fallen in love with Zachariah Hayes. The realization should have frightened her, given their circumstances, but instead it filled her with a strange calm. Whatever came next, they would face it together. They rode through the night and into the dawn, stopping only when necessary to rest the horses. The trail grew steeper, winding through pine forests and across rocky ridges. By mid-morning, they had climbed high enough to look back over the valley, Cottonwood Ranch a tiny cluster of buildings in the distance. "Will you miss it?" Lily asked as Zach gazed down at his home. "Yes," he admitted. "But a ranch is just land and buildings. What matters is the people." He turned to her, his expression softening. "And sometimes, what matters most is the person beside you." The simple declaration warmed her more than the morning sun. They continued their journey, Zach leading them confidently through terrain that would have bewildered Lily alone. By noon, they had crossed the ridge and begun descending toward the old mission road. "We'll stop at the next water source," Zach decided. "The horses need rest, and so do we." They found a small clearing beside a spring, sheltered by towering pines. While Zach tended to the horses, Lily prepared a simple meal from their provisions. They ate in companionable silence, both aware of the miles still ahead but grateful for the moment of respite. As Lily gathered their things for departure, a sudden crack of gunfire split the air. Zach was on his feet instantly, rifle in hand. "Get down," he ordered, scanning the trees. Lily dropped to the ground as another shot rang out, splintering bark from a tree near her head. Zach returned fire, the sound deafening in the small clearing. "Can you reach the horses?" he called, keeping his eyes on the surrounding forest. "I think so," Lily replied, gauging the distance to where their mounts were tethered. On my signal, make a run for it. I'll cover you." Heart pounding, Lily prepared herself. Zach fired twice more in quick succession, then shouted. Now she sprinted for the horses, expecting at any moment to feel the impact of a bullet. Behind her, Zach maintained covering fire, forcing their unseen attackers to keep their heads down. She reached the animals and quickly untied them, swinging into the saddle of her mare. Zach backed toward her, still firing intermittently. "Go," he shouted. "Follow the trail down. I'll be right behind you." "I won't leave you. Go, Lily. That's an order." Reluctantly, she urged her horse forward, looking back to see Zach mounting his own animal while still returning fire. As she rounded a bend in the trail, she heard the thunder of his horse's hooves behind her, along with distant shouts of pursuit. They rode hard, the steep trail making for treacherous going. Lily's mare stumbled once, nearly sending her over the animal's head, but recovered quickly. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew fainter as the distance increased. Only when they reached the relative safety of the old Mission Road did they slow their pace. Zach pulled alongside Lily, his face grim. "Tate's men," he confirmed. "They must have guessed our route." "How many?" "At least 3, maybe more." He checked his rifle, counting remaining ammunition. "We lost them for now, but they'll pick up our trail eventually." "What do we do?" Zach studied the road ahead, considering options. "We keep moving. There's an old way station about 10 miles ahead. We might find help there, or at least shelter for the night." The afternoon stretched endlessly as they pushed on, always listening for sounds of pursuit. The sun began its descent, shadows lengthening across the road. Lily's body ached from the long hours in the saddle, but she made no complaint. As dusk approached, the way station came into view, a low adobe building with a small corral, situated at a junction in the road. No smoke rose from its chimney, no sign of occupation visible. "Looks abandoned," Lily observed as they approached cautiously. "Better for us," Zach replied, dismounting to inspect the surroundings. "No recent tracks. I think we're alone." They led the horses into the corral, where a dusty water trough provided much-needed refreshment for the animals. The interior of the station was sparse but intact, a single room with a fireplace, rough-hewn table, and plank benches. "We'll risk a small fire," Zach decided. "Just enough to heat food. We'll need our strength." While he gathered wood, Lily sorted through their provisions, preparing the simplest meal that required minimal cooking. Her hands moved automatically, her mind preoccupied with their situation. "What if we don't make it to Santa Fe?" she asked when Zach returned. "What if Tate catches up to us first?" Zach set the wood in the fireplace, his movements deliberate. "Then we fight. But we will make it, Lily. We've come too far to fail now." She watched as he struck a match, the small flame catching on the kindling. "I never meant for any of this to happen. To involve you in my troubles. You didn't involve me. I chose this path." He stood, crossing to where she sat. "And I'd choose it again." The firelight caught the determination in his eyes, the unwavering resolve that had sustained them both. Lily reached for his hand, drawing him down beside her. "Earlier, before we were interrupted," she began hesitantly, "we were going to talk about what's happening between us." Zach's fingers tightened around hers. "Yes, we were. I need you to know whatever happens tomorrow or the next day, I don't regret any of it. Meeting you, staying with you." She met his gaze steadily. "Falling in love with you." The admission hung in the air between them, impossible to retract. For a moment, Zach simply looked at her, an expression of wonder crossing his features. Then he cupped her face in his hands, his touch infinitely gentle. "Lily Wallace," he said softly, "I never thought I'd love again after Rebecca died. Never wanted to. Then you came crashing into my life and everything changed." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "I love you. God help me, I love you." The kiss that followed was different from their first, deeper, more certain, filled with the knowledge that both had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. Lily wound her arms around his neck, pressing closer, memorizing the feel of him in case tomorrow brought separation or worse. When they finally parted, breathless, Zach rested his forehead against hers. "When this is over," he promised, "when your name is cleared, we'll build a life together. If that's what you want." "It's all I want," Lily whispered. "You, me, Cottonwood Ranch. A future." They held each other as the fire burned low, both aware of the dangers still ahead but finding strength in the connection between them. Eventually, practicality asserted itself. They needed rest before the final push to Santa Fe. Zach insisted on taking the first watch, positioning himself near the door where he could observe the approach. Lily slept fitfully on a makeshift bed of blankets, her dreams troubled by visions of pursuit and separation. She awoke to Zach's hand on her shoulder, his voice low and urgent. "Riders coming, at least 6. Instantly alert, Lily scrambled to her feet. "Tate, can't tell yet, but they're moving fast." Zach was already gathering their belongings. "We need to go. Now." They hurried to the corral, saddling the horses with practiced efficiency. Dawn was just breaking, gray light seeping across the landscape as they mounted and set off at a gallop. The road stretched before them, winding through increasingly populated countryside as they approached Santa Fe. Farmsteads and small settlements appeared with greater frequency, offering both potential help and the risk of being recognized. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew clearer, hoofbeats pounding the hard, packed earth, occasional shouts carrying on the morning air. Their lead was shrinking. "We can't outrun them," Zach said grimly as they paused to water the horses at a small stream. "Not all the way to Santa Fe." "What then?" Lily asked, trying to control her fear. Zach studied the terrain ahead, making a rapid decision. "There's a settlement about 3 miles ahead, San Miguel. It has a telegraph office, if we can get word to Marshal Parker." It was a desperate plan, but their only hope. They rode on, pushing their tired mounts to the limit. The settlement appeared on the horizon, a cluster of adobe buildings surrounding a small church, its bell tower visible from a distance. They were within sight of the outskirts when the first bullet whizzed past them. Lily ducked instinctively as Zach swerved his horse, putting himself between her and the attackers. "Ride for the telegraph office," he shouted, drawing his rifle. "Don't stop for anything, not without you. I'll be right behind you. Go." Heart in her throat, Lily urged her mare forward, bent low over the animal's neck. Behind her, the crack of Zach's rifle told her he was providing covering fire again, buying her precious seconds. The streets of San Miguel were just coming to life. Early risers stopping in shock at the sight of a woman riding hell for leather through their town, pursued by armed men. Lily spotted the telegraph office, a small building with the distinctive sign near the center of the settlement. She reined in hard, nearly falling as she dismounted. Inside, a startled operator looked up from his desk. "I need to send a message to Marshal Parker in Santa Fe," she gasped. "Immediately. It's a matter of life and death." The operator hesitated, taking in her disheveled appearance. "Madam, I don't please," Lily begged. "Lives depend on it." Something in her desperation convinced him. He turned to his key, poised to transcribe. "What's the message?" Lily dictated rapidly, explaining who she was, the circumstances of Thornton's murder, and Tate and Blackwell's involvement. She had just finished when the door burst open. Sheriff Tate stood in the entrance, revolver drawn. Behind him, Harlan Blackwell and 2 deputies crowded the doorway. Well, Tate drawled. "Miss Wallace, we've been looking for you." The telegraph operator stared in confusion. "Sheriff." "What's happening?" "This woman is wanted for murder," Tate informed him. "Step away from her." The operator complied, moving behind his desk. Lily stood her ground, chin raised defiantly. "Where's your protector, Miss Wallace?" Blackwell asked, his cultured voice at odds with the menace in his eyes. "The rancher who harbored you, did he abandon you after all?" "I'm right here," came Zach's voice from behind them. He stood in the street, rifle aimed squarely at Tate's back. "Drop your weapons, all of you." Tate tensed but didn't turn. "You're outnumbered, Hayes. Put the rifle down before someone gets hurt." "Not happening." Zach's voice was steady. "The game's over, Tate. We know you and Blackwell killed Thornton for his mining rights. We know you framed Miss Wallace to cover your tracks." A crowd had begun to gather, townspeople drawn by the commotion. They watched wide-eyed as the confrontation unfolded. "That's a serious accusation," Blackwell said smoothly. "One you can't possibly prove." "The telegram's already gone to Marshal Parker," Lily informed them, gaining confidence from Zach's presence. "He'll be here within hours." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Tate's face. He glanced at the telegraph operator, who nodded confirmation. "Sent not 5 minutes ago, Sheriff." Blackwell's composure slipped. "You fool," he hissed at Tate. "I told you to handle this quietly." "Shut up," Tate growled, his mind clearly working through options. Finally, he reached a decision. "Everyone's coming with me. We'll sort this out at my office." "No one's going anywhere with you," Zach countered. "We're waiting right here for the marshal." The standoff might have continued indefinitely if not for the arrival of a new participant. A horseman rode into the street at a gallop, reining in hard when he spotted the confrontation. Lily recognized Daniel Hayes instantly, relief washing through her. But Daniel wasn't alone. Behind him rode several men, including one wearing the distinctive badge of a territorial marshal. "Marshal Parker," Daniel called, dismounting. "These are the men I told you about. Sheriff Tate and Harlan Blackwell." The marshal, a weathered man in his 50s with a no-nonsense demeanor, surveyed the scene with practiced eyes. "Sheriff Tate, care to explain why you're holding a gun on this young woman?" Tate began a blustering explanation about fugitives and murder charges, but his words faltered as the marshal dismounted and approached. "That's interesting," Parker interrupted, "because I've spent the last day investigating some very troubling allegations about Jacob Thornton's death." He glanced at Daniel. "Mr. Hayes here provided compelling evidence about your business dealings with Blackwell, particularly regarding Thornton's mining claims." "This is absurd," Blackwell protested. "I'm a respected businessman." "You're a thief and a murderer," Daniel corrected. "We found your man, the one who actually stabbed Thornton. He was quite eager to talk once I explained the alternative." Blackwell paled visibly. Beside him, Tate's hand tightened on his gun. "Don't do it, Sheriff," Marshal Parker warned. "You're in enough trouble already." For a tense moment, it seemed Tate might risk everything in a final desperate act. Then, shoulders slumping, he lowered his weapon. One of Parker's deputies stepped forward to take it, while others moved to secure Blackwell and Tate's men. "Lily Wallace," the marshal said, turning to her, "I believe you're owed an apology on behalf of the territorial justice system. Your name will be cleared immediately." The reality of it, that her nightmare was truly ending, was almost too much to comprehend. Lily felt her knees weaken and might have fallen if Zach hadn't moved to her side, his arm steady around her waist. "Thank you, Marshal," she managed. "Thank your friends here," Parker replied, nodding toward Zach and Daniel. "They were quite persistent on your behalf." As the deputies led the prisoners away, Daniel approached his brother with a grin. "Cut it a bit close there, Zach." "Your timing was perfect," Zach returned, clasping his brother's shoulder. "How did you find the marshal so quickly?" "Got your note. Figured you'd head for Santa Fe." Caught up with Cooper, who took us straight to Parker." Daniel's expression turned serious. "The marshal had already been investigating Blackwell for land fraud. Your information about Thornton was the final piece." Lily looked between the brothers, overwhelmed with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you both." "No thanks needed," Daniel assured her, "though I am curious about what happens next." His gaze moved meaningfully between her and Zach. Zach's arm tightened around Lily's waist. "That's between me and Lily." Daniel raised his hands in surrender, though his eyes twinkled with amusement. "Fair enough. I'll just say the ranch will feel empty with you gone, brother." "Who said I'm going anywhere?" Zach asked. "Well, I assumed." Daniel glanced at Lily, then back to his brother. "Santa Fe has more opportunities for a young woman with her whole life ahead of her." Lily shook her head. "The only opportunity I want is a future at Cottonwood Ranch." She looked up at Zach. "If that offer still stands." Zach's smile, rare and transformative, lit his entire face. "It stands. Though I was thinking of something more permanent than just staying." "How permanent?" Lily asked, her heart racing. Instead of answering directly, Zach turned to his brother. "Daniel, would you excuse us for a moment?" Daniel grinned. "Take all the time you need." He tipped his hat to Lily. "Madam." As he walked away, Zach led Lily to a quieter spot near the church, away from the curious eyes of the townspeople. In the early morning light, his face was earnest, his eyes holding hers with an intensity that took her breath away. "Lily Wallace," he began, taking both her hands in his, "a week ago I was a man who thought his life was set just me and the ranch until the end of my days. Then you came along and everything changed." He squeezed her fingers gently. "I know it's sudden. I know we've known each other only a short time, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life." Lily's heart pounded as she realized what was coming. "Zach, I love you," he continued, "and if you'll have me, I want to spend the rest of my life showing you just how much. Will you marry me, Lily? Make Cottonwood Ranch our home together." Tears blurred Lily's vision, joy expanding in her chest until she thought it might burst. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Zachariah Hayes, I'll marry you." The kiss that sealed their engagement was witnessed only by the rising sun and the old church, standing sentinel in the quiet morning. When they finally separated, Zach's smile matched her own, filled with promise and the certainty that, against all odds, they had found each other. "When we get home," he said, the word home holding new meaning now, "we'll make plans. A proper wedding with Daniel and whoever else you want there." "I don't need anything fancy," Lily assured him. "Just you, me, and the future we'll build together." They returned to where Daniel waited with their horses, his knowing smile suggesting he'd guessed the outcome of their conversation. "Congratulations," he said simply. "Rebecca would have approved, Zach. She'd have liked Lily." Zach nodded, emotion flickering across his features at the mention of his first wife. "I think so too." As they prepared to depart for home, now truly home for both of them, Marshal Parker approached once more. "Miss Wallace, I'll need a formal statement from you about Thornton's murder when you're ready. No rush, but within the next few weeks." "Of course, Marshal," Lily agreed. "And thank you again for your help." "Justice is my job, madam." He tipped his hat. "Safe journey home." The ride back to Cottonwood Ranch was vastly different from their desperate flight of the previous days. They traveled at an easy pace, Daniel riding alongside, the conversation flowing freely between them. Lily found herself watching Zach often, still hardly able to believe the turn her fortune had taken. From fugitive to fiancé in the span of a week, it seemed impossible, yet the evidence was beside her, solid and real. When Cottonwood Ranch appeared on the horizon late the following day, a wave of emotion washed over her. This place that had been her sanctuary was now to be her home, her future. As they rode into the yard, she saw it with new eyes, not just as a refuge, but as the setting for the life she and Zach would build together. 3 months later, on a crisp autumn day with the aspen leaves turned to gold, Lily Wallace became Lily Hayes in a simple ceremony at the ranch. Daniel stood as his brother's best man, and a handful of neighbors gathered to witness the union. Lily wore a dress of cream-colored silk ordered from Santa Fe, with wildflowers in her hair instead of a veil. Zach, unaccustomed to formal attire, nevertheless cut a striking figure in his dark suit. The minister spoke of new beginnings and the blessings of unexpected joy. When he pronounced them husband and wife, the small gathering erupted in cheers that seemed to echo across the valley. At the celebration afterward, Daniel raised a toast to the newlyweds. "To my brother and his bride, may your love grow stronger with each passing day, and may Cottonwood Ranch flourish under your care." Glasses clinked, and Zach drew Lily close for a kiss that promised a lifetime of happiness. Later, as the guests departed and twilight settled over the land, they stood together on the porch of what was now their home. "Happy, Mrs. Hayes?" Zach asked, his arm around her waist. Lily leaned into his embrace, watching as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. "More than I ever thought possible." "Good." He kissed her temple. "Because I plan to keep you that way for the next 50 years at least." Lily laughed, turning in his arms to face him. "Only 50, to start with," he amended, his eyes reflecting the love that had transformed both their lives. "After that, we'll see about the next 50. As night fell completely, they remained on the porch, two people who had found in each other not just love, but redemption and the promise of a future neither had dared to imagine. From fugitive to beloved wife, Lily had found her home. And Zachariah Hayes, who had once thought his heart buried with his first wife, had discovered that love could indeed come twice in a lifetime, unexpected and all the more precious for it. At Cottonwood Ranch, the dust had settled, revealing a path forward illuminated by love, trust, and the courage to begin again.